A Lantern, Chapter 8. Will and Abby drove to Grandpa Deal's in a two-wheeled cart behind an old white mare. So slowly did they drive that several passed them on the river road. Grandpa and Grandma Deal and Louise in a lumber wagon with a fine big team, and Regina Deal and her beau in the new high-top buggy. Grandpa laughed and called out some saucy jokes, but Grandma told him to hush his foolishness and tend to his driving. Will and Abby had the front bedroom of the big 5-room log house for their own. In the weeks that followed, Will went about the regular farm work for his father, and Abby put her young shoulder to the wheel of the housework. For Will's sake, she tried to meet his mother's petty nagging with forbearance, but it wore on her like the constant dripping of water on a stone. Grandma Deal was a chronic grumbler and a born pessimist. She saw bad signs in nature's most ordinary activities. If a dog ate grass, if a bird flew through the house, if the moon rose from a cloud, the direst things were about to happen. And life meant nothing to her apparently but work. The first break of day and the last ray of sunlight saw her at hard tasks of the housework. And when all other duties seemed done, she immediately brought out a box of intricate quilt blocks, the Rose of Sharon and the Star of Bethlehem, the rising sun or the log cabin. For Grandpa Deal, Abby had nothing but love. His Yankee drollness could always bring a bubbling laugh to her lips, and his stump of an arm gave her added tenderness towards him. Looking at the two, she used to wonder how he could keep so cheerful. He never crossed Grandma, never argued with her in any way but jovially, never lost his temper. "Now, Mother," he would say, "can't you see the funny side of that?" "No, I can't," she would retort, "and neither could you if you'd stop your foolish joking and keep your mind on your work." It never went into a quarrel. When it approached one, Grandpa would go whistling out to the barn to work. Yes, Abby loved Will's father better than his mother. In the same way did she enjoy and dislike Louise and Regina. Louise was energetic, pleasant, peace-loving. Regina was selfish, a mischief maker, and a shirk. The young farmer with whom Regina was now keeping company had come first to see Louise. Although Abby knew little of the circumstances, she felt quite definitely sure that Regina had maneuvered the transposition with adroitness. All spring, Abby, fearful that the family might think she was not doing her part, took more than her share of the household duties. She helped boil the maple sap down into sugar, swept and dusted, baked and cooked, and took over the entire care of the chickens. Louise worked with her faithfully, but Regina slipped out from under tasks with all the agility of an eel. And then Abby was not well. "She's not doing her share," Abby overheard Grandma sputtering. "I told you it was too good to be true. I said all the time it wouldn't last." "Now, Mother," Grandpa's voice came gently, patiently, "I think I know what's the matter. You wouldn't want her to overdo." "Overdo nothing. I brought 8 babies into the world, and I ain't never seen the time anybody cared if I was overdoing." "Now, Mother, I wouldn't say that. It was hard, but you was healthy, and I always got help for you." "Yes, a passel of neighbor girls that wasn't worth their weight in salt. Now I suppose it'll fall to me to take care of Abby. Nobody cares if I die or not." Abby heard Grandpa go whistling down to the barn. Then she threw herself on the bed and cried tears of sensitiveness and discontent. More and more she wanted her own home. If it were no better than the old sheep shed that she lived in one summer when she was a little girl, at least it would be their own. Will was good to her, so kind and understanding, but he did not seem to sense how much she wanted a home of her own. Abby's baby was born in January of 1867. Roads were drifted, and Doc Matthews in a coonskin cap with a tail down his back came on a horse, his saddlebags full of quinine and calomel. Nature had to take its course without much aid from its handmade science, and nature took a fiendish course with Abby. 2 days and a night she wrestled with nature, as Jacob wrestled with the angel. And then she had a son. Lying there after her ordeal, with the baby on her arm, she knew the age-old surge of mother love. All her old love of life seemed to concentrate on one thing, the little soft, helpless bundle. The world of romance, of courtly men and lovely ladies, was a world of unreality, and only Will and the little son were worth her thoughts. Mackenzie Deal, they named him. But it was too big of a mouthful for so small a bit of humanity that it was not long until everyone had shortened it to Mac. Will was inordinately proud of him. Grandpa Deal and Louise came in several times a day to see him, but Regina was not overly interested. Grandma Deal sputtered about the care of him. Why didn't Abby keep more shawls around him? Why did she let the sun shine across the bed that way? Why did she ask the doctor all those questions when he didn't know as much about babies as a mother? When Abby was up, life grew richer, more full. Her voice took on a mellowness. With the baby in the high-backed wooden rocker, she crooned old lullabies which Maggie O'Connor had brought from the winds of Ballyporeen. As little Mac grew that year and crept and then stood on fat wobbling legs by the chairs, Abby's desire for a home of her own reached gigantic proportions. "You know, Will," she brought up the subject in the spring a little shyly, half hesitatingly, "I wish we could have a home of our own. Your folks," she dropped her eyes that Will might not see the telltale evasion in them, "are good to me, but I'd so like my own little house. It needn't be half as big or nice." To Abby's surprise, Will turned on her in a sort of suppressed fury. "I don't like it either. You needn't think. I'm thinking every day what to do. What am I here, a hired man for father? I'll never get anywhere, and now we've got the baby. I'm glad you've been the one to bring it up. It decides me. We're going out to Nebraska to start for ourselves." "Nebraska?" It had the sound of Africa. "Yes, there are too many settlers here, and as long as I'm anywhere around here, I'll always have to work for father. It ain't right, I tell you. And another thing, Abby, our boy shan't be tied down. He can do whatever he wants, and we're going to Nebraska, you and I and little Mac." "Oh, no, Will, not out there. Anywhere around here, but not to that far-off place. Why, Will, my mother, my brothers, my sisters, your folks, they're all around here." "You can come back to visit them, I promise you that, Abby, whenever you want to. It's a wonderful opportunity. It's the poor man's country. We can get railroad land dirt cheap, or at least school lands near the river, or even push farther west and homestead." "It's dangerous, Will. There are Indians." "Well, so there are Indians here, a whole camp of them over by Fisher's Lake. But they're peaceable, and those out there, oh, Will. It's been 14 years since the government made a treaty with the Indians out there. 14 years ago. They gave up their title to all that land out there bordering on the Missouri. I guess when it's been that long settling, we'll find it in pretty good shape." Will was talking definitely, stubbornly, as though the question was settled. Abby was so frightened at the turn the argument was taking that she studiously kept her voice calm. "The baby, Will. Will, we have to think of him. There won't be any good schools or doctors." "It is him I'm thinking. The big future for him out there in newer country. He'll be a farmer. All the Deals have always been for the land. Fathers have always thought it, that their sons belong only to them. Small wonder that Will Deal made the mistake of forgetting something, forgetting that the baby was also a Mackenzie, that his mother held her head as Isabel Anders Mackenzie had held hers in the long, wide gold frame, that her hair had the gold-brown tints of the lovely lady, that her long, slender fingers tapered at the ends. But Will. Never had Abby so thoroughly felt the queer sensation of being swept along by the wind which she could not stop, of time which she could not stay. "Will, my voice, Mrs. Whitman, everyone thinks I ought to do something with it, and my painting will, to go way out there. Oh, we'll find you good teachers out there. No, Abby, I've been thinking it over for a long time, and it's my chance. We're going in the summer. I'll be getting everything ready. The army's money will buy the wagon and the oxen and the land. I'll make up my mind soon about it, whether to buy near the river or homestead farther out." So Will had said he was going west. The era of this freedom had not dawned. Abby Deal's man had said he was going to Nebraska, and Abby Deal had to go too. It was as simple as that, then. They began preparations. with Abby still protesting that Nebraska was too far away and too uncivilized. It's been a state since March of last year, Will gave equal arguments in its favor. They've got the site all chosen for the new capital. It's named Lincoln. Queer when you stop to think about it, that an old friend of father should ever get big enough to be president and have a town named after him, ain't it? But Abby was not thinking of the recently martyred president. Yes, but they say the place they've chosen is way out on the prairie with just 2 or 3 log houses. She was not so willing to believe the best of the infant state as was Will. He sought out all the good news he could find to cheer her. Once he brought an Omaha paper. Talk about a new country, he was enthusiastic. Everything is as citified as can be in Omaha, and we won't be so far from there. The paper says it has 15,000 inhabitants, a regular city. How's this for you? 11 churches, 5 schools, and 5 banks, it says. Dealers in gold dust, bullion, coin, and exchange. And the Union Pacific's got overland mail route clear to Laramie, with 2 trains every day. Yes, and if you read on a little farther, you're leaving out some things. I saw that paper myself, Will Deal. He laughed. Oh, 5 breweries and 60 saloons ain't so bad, and besides, there's a hoop factory. Well, I don't care about that. They might even go out of style someday, although Regina thinks they never will. I wouldn't care if they did. Even if they do make you look stylish, they're not comfortable. And all the time, Abby was getting together her little possessions, and Will was preparing the outfit. He had intended to make a new ox yoke, had in fact already cut the maple and some pliable hickory for bows, when Mother Mackenzie gave him the sturdy yoke that she had used 14 years before on the trip out from Illinois. He painted the names of his ox team red and baldy on it, and in the center, Nebraska, 1868. After some correspondence with an old army friend, Will bought his land, sight unseen. He was pleased with this purchase. It was railroad land, and he paid $2 an acre for it. Some people from Michigan by the name of Lutz were getting 2 quarter sections near him. It's only 35 miles from Nebraska City and about 10 miles from Weeping Water. The county seat, Plattsmouth, has a hotel and some houses and a grist mill. It only takes a couple of hours to grind a sack of corn. Yes, providing you've got the corn. Abby could not yet enter heartily into the plans. Oh, we'll have the corn all right. They say the soil is the finest and blackest you ever saw. And then, before they were ready, Abby knew that she was to be a mother again. On a morning in July they started. Red and Baldy, in front of Grandpa Deal's, stood hitched to the prairie schooner in their stupid, stolid way. All the possessions were in the wagon, covered now with its new white canvas. Everyone was there to see them off. Mother Mackenzie, with her pudding-bag-shaped body and her blue-black Irish eyes and her white cap, brought the calfskin-covered box and the Seth Thomas clock with the little brown church painted on the glass. You take the chest, Abby. I want you to have it. You can keep the pearls in it, and the clock, too. It seems like it's yours. I mind how you always sayin' no one could stop time. The Reverend and Mrs. Whitman came. Mrs. Whitman had a box of paints and some canvas for Abby. Keep on with your little painting talent, Abby, she told her. Yes, the Reverend Whitman said a little pompously, and with your music. We can do with our lives whatever we will, you know. Yes, I know, agreed Abby. Grandma Deal in her black cap was sputtering because she had not time to put her bread in loaves. Why didn't they tie the chicken coop on better? Why hadn't they started the day before? The weather looked as though it might storm. What did they bother with that dog for? There, a bird flew in front of the oxen. That was a bad sign. Dr. Matthews stopped in his new top buggy. Grandpa Deal's ice blue eyes were clouded with sadness. Good luck to you, my boy. And Abby, a real daughter couldn't have been kinder. Abby's heart was in her throat. Oh, stop the wind rushing by. Stop time for a few minutes until she could think whether this move was the thing to do. Life was not right. It was not meant that you should leave your own this way. It was not meant that weeks and weeks of travel should separate you from your folks. The baby, little Mac, would forget Mother Mackenzie and kind old Grandpa Deal, and the next baby would never know them. Only one thing gave her strength for the parting. Only one thing gave her courage to make the long journey to the raw new state: her love for Will. Abby's love for her husband had retained its sweetness and its ardor, and in her heart she knew that as much as she cared for her people, as dear were her mother and sisters and the old settlement to her, they did not outweigh her love for him. If being with Will meant making a new home in a far unsettled country, why then she chose the journey bravely to the far unsettled country. Abby threw up her head fearlessly. "Well, we're ready." "Goodbye. Take good care of little Mac." "Oh, Abby, Abby. Mother, goodbye. Janet, dear. Mary, Belle, Louise, thank you all for all you did. Goodbye. Yes, we'll write as soon as... Kiss Grandma, Mac, baby." Will was boyishly gay. For the first time he felt free from the folks, his own master. "Well, here we go." He cracked the long, black, snaky-looking whip. "We'll come back rich," he laughed in excitement. The wagon lurched, steadied, moved on. "Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye." Hands were in the air. A sunbonnet waved. An apron was thrown over someone's head. There was sobbing. Abby's hand was on her hard, dry throat. It felt as though it must burst. Stop the wind. Stop time for a moment. The wagon lurched ahead. Far back in the road, Abby could still see the little group, painted flatly against the white of the fence and the green of the honey locusts. Will's eyes, full of the light of hope and courage, looked to the west, but Abby's, tear-misted, clung to the east.